Today I'm going to be watching this video, which is actually a comparison between cycling in the Netherlands and cycling in my home country, Britain. And I would say, with what I've learned about cycling in the Netherlands and my own knowledge of my home country, the difference couldn't be any starker. I feel like Netherlands is just perfect for cycling, whether it's the infrastructure, not just that, but also just the mentality of the people. I think like in the UK, there's just very little cycling infrastructure. And I think the mentality of British people is almost verging on like anti-cycling, which I really don't like. I respect cyclists. I think if more people did it, it's just a better way of life. I don't know how doable it is in the UK, but interested to see this comparison. You can tell me what you think. Tell me if you're Dutch and have you ever tried to cycle in the UK or any other countries. Tell me about the differences and what you think.
We're all here and you're watching this programme because bike racing is a spectacular sport. But the beauty of the simple bicycle, this wonderful simple machine, is it's so much more than a collection of sprockets and wheels and gears for people to go fast on and entertain us. Now, it is of course all of those things, but it has the potential to change entire communities. And here in Utrecht, well, they've let it do just that. There's a general assumption around the world that the Netherlands' bicycle-centric approach towards the use of public space has always been in place, organically grown since the invention of the wheel. In fact, it hasn't. In the late 50s, the Netherlands, like the rest of Europe, was embracing the motor car, even demolishing buildings and removing cycling infrastructure to make the streets bigger to accommodate more motor traffic. The results were predictable: a rapid decline in the use of bikes and an increase in road deaths. By 1971, well over 3,000 people were dying every year on Dutch roads, and more than 400 of that number were children. The toll was seen as intolerable and sparked mass demonstrations, with protesters demanding central government take action to make the streets safer. In '73, an economic pressure in the guise of a predicted oil crisis gave the Dutch government the final push it needed to rethink not only the transport policy, but how they lived in the Netherlands. Car-free Sundays, ostensibly to save fuel, were introduced in cities and reminded people of just what they'd lost. And instead of being bad for business, as many shop owners had feared, takings actually went up. Eventually, city centres started to become permanently car-free, with Utrecht being an early adopter, and in the mid-70s the first separated cycleways were built. Within a year, bike use in these areas increased by as much as 75%, results that gave the government the confidence to take the scheme nationwide. Unsurprisingly, road deaths plummeted, and the child death rate that had catalysed the whole rethink dropped steadily from over 400 in 1971 to just 14 by 2010.
Wow, like that's again another stark difference. Yeah, so good to actually get a bit more insight. I have learned a little bit about that it's relatively new, the cycling, like obviously in the last 40, 50 years or so, but to see the reason for it, people out there protesting at that time, it really came from the people themselves, and obviously it had to have that buy-in from the government as well to implement the strategy or the system, the policies and so on. But really good to see it started from the will of the people. Really cool.
For 40 years, the Netherlands built on their success adopting and expanding their people-first philosophy, not only in their streetscapes, but also in their legislation. The presumed liability law, which presupposes that the larger vehicle is always responsible in the event of an accident, ensures every road user is obliged to look after the more vulnerable. In addition, all motorised traffic in the Netherlands has to give way when turning left or right to people on bicycles. It's a sad fact that cycling in Britain is still often seen as frivolous, a leisure activity that gets in the way of the serious adult business of driving. So calls by cycling protesters to adopt similar measures to protect and encourage cycling in the UK have been met with scorn, derision, and in some cases outright hostility.
Yeah, that's like, it says a lot about the British mentality, man. British people are just very resistant to change. Again, not only do they go against things like this, even things like electric vehicles, I've seen recently people very vehemently go against these things, but they actually mock it, deride it. I just don't understand. It's definitely not my mentality, but there's definitely a lot of people in the UK who have that mindset, unfortunately.
With a vociferous few insisting that following suit would be unfair to drivers, and in any case, it'd bring our cities to a standstill. Well, in Utrecht, just 225 miles away from our capital, they take a very different view. Their strategy hasn't led to chaos. In fact, there's virtually no conflict between drivers and bikes. The people here seem to like the arrangement they've developed, and why wouldn't they? The city is noticeably quieter, the air is cleaner, and businesses are booming. Public spaces here are simply a more pleasant place to be. Who wouldn't prefer the roads where they live to look like this? 33% of all journeys here are by bike, and, even more wonderful, in an age where obesity threatens to kill more people than cancer, 50% of all the children travel to school by bike. And for those of us who've become accustomed to thinking of cycling as an inherently dangerous way to get about, there's an even more interesting stat. Less than 1% of cyclists in the Netherlands wear helmets, yet the country has the lowest incidence of head injuries in the world. The Dutch recognised early on that measures that really keep cyclists safe are space, low speeds, supportive laws and familiarity with riding at an early age. In my opinion, the people who make the big transport spending decisions on our behalf should be obliged to come and spend just a few days here before deciding what is and what isn't good value for public money.
Well, I've spent a couple of days now riding around the streets of Utrecht, and I've seen tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of bikes, but I haven't seen a single cyclist. I've just seen normal people in normal clothes doing normal things, dressed for their destination, not the journey. The bicycle, just a simple, fun and inexpensive way to get from A to B. It's a contraption that quite literally has the potential to change the world, if we let it.
Yeah, so I completely agree with it, and like the more videos I watch on it, the more envious I become. That it's just, I just could never see it happening in the UK, because I feel like people just don't have that long-term thinking. They don't have that desire. Like, again, that they have, what they have is that resistance to change and just things that are for the betterment of the country. Like, but I do really respect how it is so ingrained in Dutch culture now, even if it is only in the last 50, 60 years. It's just like you see all the benefits. He mentioned all the benefits, whether it's for the health or the environment. It's just a great thing, cycling. So tell me what you think about this. Tell me about the comparison, what you think about the comparison between the Netherlands and Britain. Tell me your experiences cycling in other countries and how that compares to cycling in the Netherlands. Thanks.